powered by eastrologer.tv. I'm Ernesto, and I'm your host. Beretta, are you there on the line with me? Can you hear me right now?
I am here.
Fantastic. So it seems like that we have to get the show set up in other places right now. So we are going to take a brief little 2 to 3 minute break and get that all set up, and we'll be back with you guys in a few. See you soon. Oh no, what does that mean? Not now. Okay, hi,
It
hi
means that
everybody. I
we
guess
have.
we are live. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I hope they can too.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I guess that all just went away. Perfect timing. It felt like really playing a game, and the bird was about to come and get me because I took too much time to clear the level. But we're all set up and fixed now. So welcome everybody. I am Ernesto. I am your host here for the next hour or so here on Celestial Intersections Radio. We used to be known formally as the Uranus Happens Show here on Blog Talk Radio, but we are rebranding ourselves and changing that narrative a little bit. We're getting more out of the astrology and more into the intersection of science and spirit because that's kind of our brand. That's who we are. Is raising self-awareness through science, which is Uranian astrology, since it really is the best metaphysics that's out there. And so we're just doing something different because I'll be honest with you. I was looking at doing some podcast stuff a couple of weeks back. I thought maybe tonight's show was going to be an actual live podcast that we were going to pre-record. But when I ended up spending all of this time with Facebook, trying to farm guests to get, to speak with us in like a Zoom meeting so we can put this all together. It was so overwhelming because it was just nothing but fakery. The bots on Facebook groups is insane. I don't know, Veretta, if you've ever played around with Facebook groups or anything like that, but there is like a 65% chance that the person who is asking a question may or may not be real.
Yeah. I don't.
And
I don't.
yeah, go
Well,
ahead.
yeah, right. I don't really, play into that too much. Um, but I do. What I dislike so much is the trolls. I don't even know any other way to put it. They're sizing you up for what they can get out of you for free, no matter what. So for me, that's a little bit disheartening. I'm out
It,
there putting information you know, to give people what they need. And I don't have any agenda. I'll even do it for free. But then when you try to play me up for me to pay you for something, that I don't even like playing those games.
It's just annoying, when you're trying to, get something together and then the people that you're dealing with aren't real, and, like we sometimes very rarely experience this on the show where like somebody will call in and give a fake name with birth data that doesn't lead to a real person. You can actually tell this in astrology, believe it or not, because, one of the things that's really terrific is that, like, if we go over to my screen right now, see, you'll see that my chart come up here in a moment here. There are all of these planets that kind of surround these 4 these 4 arrows or these 4 points here. So basically what that means is, like these are going to be indicators of what's called a chart marker, which is just, a signature about you and your life story and who you are and what you came here to do, that kind of thing. Now, there are different chart markers and, different things that can happen with this. But, oh, I see what's going on now. What happens is that these chart markers, we attract the people in our lives that are most similar to our own charts. So if you look at my chart, those green squares that I have circled here, these are all going to be planets that I'm really going to want to look for as far as like a partner or an interaction is concerned. I don't even mean, like to date or to be my friend, like if you and I are going to have a conversation, if you and me are going to be anything more than just, like wham bam, thank you for this, and we're done. You and I are going to have planets in common together. Like what comes out in my chart, you will have also. So like Veretta, you're a psychic, you're an intuitive counselor and medium. So, you've got that Neptune Hades piece, which is that huge unconscious, mind and all about the psychic stuff. And me being a Sun Hades person because of the Uranian astrology, that makes, the two of us going to come together because we got that Hades piece with us. So, I mean, if people who have really great, pretty, like quiet, mundane, boring lives, the ones that aren't really too filled with difficulty or trouble, like their planets just won't resonate with my chart the same way as what it would somebody who actually needs help or somebody who I do have a contract with. What I'm trying to get at here is that through Uranian astrology, we can actually see the soul contracts that we set up for ourselves in this lifetime. And it's all, it's all visually demonstrated through the language of the planets here. So when they talk about like sacred geometry and, like these special types of signatures and, like how, like shapes kind of form each other, this is the real sacred geometry that we're looking for because these patterns and these signatures will repeat themselves over charts. So all of my astrology people that I am near and dear to and close to my heart, those guys, it's really beautiful to see how this all comes together where you see like, okay, so different souls, different life goals and paths, but they do have this one thing in common. So that's one thing that's really unique and different about what we do with Uranian astrology versus, a 12-house system is because one of the things that makes this subject or makes a chart so easy to read is the fact that because it is a visual language, all we have to do is just sort of dissect what's going on here. We just have to sort of make sense of the dirt that's on the surface, and then you can start to see more clearly as we go down. So, I mean, Veretta, you're probably going to have this experience with me pretty soon because we're going to be doing some beta testing in my R&D group of my textbook later on in the month, and I would really love it if you're going to do my home study program because that way you and I can work on the psycho-spiritual stuff that we want to get into. So that's a conversation for later.
I love that.
But you're gonna learn at least at every basic level how to, piece together keywords of the planets and how to formulate sentences about what this person's life is all about. So, and that can tell us everything that we need to know just by knowing how a native operates their life, like that they have X issue and that this is at the seat of their soul. This is really who they are and what, drives a lot of their actions. If we know that that's an issue, then let's work on that, like doing your shadow work, as some people will call it, like the parts of ourselves that we don't really like or care for, these things that, we've kind of let slide by the wayside and we need to take care of now. It's absolutely something that we can work on here. And because the chart is just a matrix of possibilities, then by doing so, we can look at the arrangement of your planets and say, okay, so this is going to be an easier area for you, but this one having to do with like substance use or relationships that are abusive, that's really hard for you to get out of. But you know what? It's not all totally lost, because we also know that this planet makes contact with these other points here in your chart. So that means here's your defense when things get bad. One thing that's really interesting is I started seeing a counselor recently. And so it's kind of opened my eyes to the different types of counseling I've had in the past, because this is a different mode than what I'm used to working with. My last counselor was worked in a gestalt mode, which means that, you know, it was really sort of all about the self and all about being whole again. And more than anything, gestalt counseling is ruthless when it comes to personal responsibility. So what's happening here is I'm having this experience on a day-to-day basis that these Facebook groups, you know, everybody's playing a game of how many astrologers does it take to screw in a light bulb. They're all just a bunch of idiots, and it sounds unbelievably stupid. Why am I wasting my time with this? Why am I going to do I truly think that I can put in my 2 cents here and it will be valued, knowing that, you know, I just trash on all of that other stuff that those people do. So when you think about it, you know, like in a gestalt mode, you have to ask yourself, okay, yeah, so you can keep fighting the fight, you know, just for the sake of fighting it because you can, and that's who you are. Or, you know, you can also ask yourself, Ernesto, when are you going to stop giving away all of your power to all of these people who don't care about you and focus on the variables in
Oh,
life
yeah.
that you can control, which is my happiness. So, as opposed to getting involved in all of those chats before, now I just close them out and I start working on my book, because that is something that's positive and that affects me. That's something I can control, as opposed to all of this, you know, nonsense that's being spewed everywhere. So that's one takeaway I'd really like for everybody to walk home with today, is that ask yourself the question, when am I going to stop giving away my personal power to these other people who don't care about me? Very simply, just like that. Whatever the issue or difficulty is in life, it's really remarkable what happens when you start living by this and pulling yourself out of the flames, because it's just not necessary.
Well, and you know, where both of us are concerned with your ability to say, this is what you're doing, and my tool both of us are concerned to help people your ability to say, this how is what you're doing it or stop doing. That's where it's a package deal, because, and I love the fact that the metaphysical side of the intuition and then the science, where you and I are both concerned, can be combined. So like we've said multiple times before, it's like I can tell somebody what's going on, and you can find it in the chart to back it up. And so then it's no longer is it just a psychic saying this may happen. It's a psychic saying this is going to happen, and that guy that does the astrology that tells you for sure what's up. And so therefore they're getting more, people are getting more than they would if they're just taking a chance and rolling the dice and paying money to someone that may or may not be able to actually give them the help they need to undo all these things or get past these things that in the past have tripped them up. And I think there's a benefit to what we provide to the mainstream, because we can give them information and knowledge that they could not find before.
Absolutely, you know, like we should be charging everybody $100. Maybe that's probably about what we're worth. But you know, like even if we just, you know, put up an admission ticket price for everybody to get on the show with us, that would totally change, you know, the nature of the calls that we get, and people would also probably start paying a lot more attention. But where I'm going with this is the fact that, you know, we offer a genuinely damn good service here at the show, and you know that can't be said about our competitors. You know, like they just go on the blind faith basis that you're a stupid consumer and maybe I'm good at my job and I'll tell you what you need to know or want to hear. But you know, there is still a chance that you may end up seeing your therapist 3 times a week after our talk together. And you know, that's just not good consumerism. It's really not.
No, but the reality of it is, so here's the caveat to that: if it's something you needed already and now you need it even more, then you know, there's the aspect of spirituality that says, you know, everything happens for a reason. So here we are providing you that prompt to get your butt through that door and get the help you need.
You know, I actually changed the description of the show and the way and what you do, Veretta, because I always used to say something to the extent of, Veretta will connect to those in spirit to deliver messages that you need to know. And I changed the rhetoric of that to messages that you need to hear, because there is a very, very slight difference between them. Like for me, um, I need to know that my financial future is secure. Sure, that's great. That's most people, in fact. But what I need to hear is it's okay, Ernesto, if you take care of yourself today. You know, like the world is not going to fall apart if you go to the gym and take care of yourself. You know, like that's something I need to hear versus something, that I need to know. So there is a very slight difference there. And that's really what we do, because the things that you already know them at a subconscious level. You're either just not paying attention to them, or perhaps that's what brought you to us, is, you want some validation there. But for the most part, our body seems to know a lot of the play-by-play that goes down in our everyday mundane lives. But the stuff that we need to hear, that's kind of like taking care of yourself. That's like the chicken soup for the soul kind of stuff that we forget about
Yeah.
just because of life. And so hearing that stuff as a reminder, like I had to tell myself over these past few weeks, it's okay for you to pull yourself away from these things. And not give them your energy or attention, because you're going to be fine without them. And guess what? They didn't have all that much to say anyway. So disarming the dragon has really done wonders for me in terms of my psyche these past few weeks, because as we've been on a break here, I haven't had the anger or the hostility or the frustration that I normally go through when I look at this stuff. Like, oh, I'm on this website, why am I on this person's website? I don't even like them. But you just kind of hate watch it or use it anyway because there's nothing else better. But then you realize what you had to begin with was actually quite fine, so you don't even need to go back and undo that.
Yeah, most definitely.
So I
It's a
know,
good thing to
Beretta,
have.
you've been going through some health stuff lately, and been having to take care of yourself. How has it been for you, as somebody who has been over the top busy out the ears? Like I don't even know how you keep up with yourself sometimes. To, oh my God, everything is so quiet. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Okay, so true fact, I had to learn how sitting still and taking care of myself was absolutely okay. And at that point in time, like you just said, I was busy out the wazoo and couldn't really justify why I shouldn't um, just follow what I would, my normal path, just power through it, it'll be okay. Well, reality of it was the issues I had I tried to, which I did, every time I tried to power through, made my situation worse. And so this could have been devastating for me in a way had I not allowed myself to say, okay, priority is, and if I want to live to do anything else at another time frame, I have to stop and take care of myself and not worry about what everybody else is missing. And when I got that under my belt, that I knew it was just going to be a matter of time if I did exactly that, and I found a way to distract my attention so that my mind didn't go freaking crazy. I started to heal much quicker, and I had to let go of what my old mode would have been, so that I wasn't, making it last a whole lot longer than it needed to. Now I'm 6 weeks out. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm released from the doctor to go back to limited time frame on a physical aspect. And so, of course, today, what did I do? I went out and I took care of myself by what? Getting my nails done, getting a pedicure, just wearing good clothes that I hadn't been able to put on in a way, and rejoice in the fact that that whole ordeal was not as much trauma that I had anticipated it being, because I had to learn to sit. And so I giggled, every time I sat down and picked up my phone, instead of try to check my email or see if I had any messages, people wanting time from me, I started to play. I puzzled, I colored, I watched videos on, the reels on Facebook and Instagram. And the time went by a lot quicker than, I thought it would. And in that way, I did give myself permission to say, you know what, this, the old trauma of thinking, no, if you sit on your butt and not do anything, you are just wasting a day. That old trauma of being conditioned started to subside, and I was able to sit and do nothing per se. And I'm really liking it. I'm liking the fact that I had to take time off. And it's not the first time I've ever had to take time off, but always before I would also compensate by going ahead and giving readings because it wasn't a physical thing to do. But for me this time, it was priority and what I needed to let go of in order to be okay. And I found it wasn't as difficult once I embraced that big monster in the room and just did it and realized, you know, nobody's suffering. I'm going to give everybody what they want eventually. It may be not going to happen today, but it's time to take care of myself. And I can do that. And I can adamantly say for people that come to me, even though I would be their biggest cheerleader in the past of, hey, you know, you can take care of yourself. This is what you can do. Start little steps, blah, blah, blah. Well, I applied it to myself, which is a very difficult trait for me to do. And now I have a whole lot more compassion. I'm back into that mode of really taking things slow and generally recognizing that other people can't move that fast, and, you know, giving more of what people need in the manner that they need it, and not being so drawn out in that way that I'm feeling like, you know, you're not listening to me, and if you don't listen, that's fine. I'll just move on to something else. I'm taking the time to offer what I can do, you know, a lot more patiently. And like I said, with I'm back to having more compassion.
You know, and what's funny is that it was probably pretty hard for you at the beginning. Did you feel like you were under duress to relax?
Oh my God. I when I sat down, my foot would start going, you know, and my significant other would say, are you nervous? No. Are you upset? Well, I'm getting that way. What's wrong? I have no idea. And so every time I would be cued, realize your body language is telling on you, I needed to really take it slow. It was agonizing for me to sit and do nothing. But then when I got in the hang of doing the coloring and the puzzles and the, you know, watching the videos on my phone, I was finding that I could relax in that manner, and I wasn't all keyed up anymore, and I could go through my day. And, you know, it, like, bedtime couldn't come quick enough for me originally, but I was like, oh wow, time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? I'm all right, I'm wore out and ready to go to bed. It was terrible for me to not keep myself active and in my go mode.
Oh my God, yes, I absolutely 1,000,000% agree with you because, you know, like getting sick is not allowed. Period. End of story. You just don't do that. Because you know what happens when you get
Yeah,
sick? You feel crappy and you don't have the means or desire to do anything. So then what do? You sit there and you just waste away until you get better. And it's just crap. It just
right.
sucks, you know. Like I don't know how people do it, honestly. And so that's so like when you say that I was so bored twiddling my thumbs just sitting there, to me that speaks to like getting a head cold or something worse, and then me being in timeout because I truly feel punished when I have to kind of sit back because my physical body won't let me go further.
Yeah, right.
And for the
Yeah, it
longest
definitely felt like I was being punished.
for the longest time it really felt kind of psychosomatic because there was a thing in my 20s where I would think to myself, okay, so something bad is about to happen because it's time for that to happen. Like every so often something horrible would happen, but that's because I was addicted to living in a hurricane. So that's kind of what we can expect when you're making nothing but poor choices for your life at that time. So I would think to myself, okay, so something bad is about to happen to my health and I'm going to have to be put in time out here again. And then eventually I realized that that was all psychosomatic. And I thought, wait, why does it have to be like that? Why is my body set on a schedule or, like a clock of sorts, that it's going to fall apart and get real and terrible every, X period of days or months. And I finally broke out of that, and I haven't really had problems with my health ever since. So that is something that, we do experience as human beings is, we kind of get afraid of ourselves, and especially depending on our conditioning, and we think to ourselves, well, maybe I'm not good enough for whatever it is that I think I'm not good enough for. So I need to be sick, because that's just all I know how to do, because this is what I'm capable of. No, that's not how it works. Don't limit yourself. That's like, that's some roadblock stuff that we just need to reprogram here.
Yep, that's for sure.
So,
And the more comfortable you get with it, the easier it becomes.
Veretta, I'm taking a look at your chart here on the screen. I'm gonna it'll change over in just a few seconds, and this is doing some stuff about what we were just discussing about you having to take some time off and enjoy the self-care piece kind of thing. So we can see that I've asked two separate questions here. The one on the bottom is going to be about Sun Pluto. This is going to have to do with changes to the body, because the sun is the body, right? Pluto is the organs, and Pluto can also mean change. So when we talk about changes to the body or our physical health, we'd like to look at that midpoint, Sun Pluto. That's one of many midpoints that we can look at, but that's one of my go-tos. So when we look at that, we see that these two pink dots, or the pink and the blue, which the blue corresponds with the first ring, the pink corresponds with the second ring, and the black is the third one on the outside. So when we look at kind of what's happening here for those inner midpoints, we see that it actually comes to the black point of the second question that I'm asking here, because this black dot is on a higher level than this first information that we were looking at before. So the first question is about the physical body and its changes. The second question was about Mercury, Jupiter, which is very simpler, how to benefit from your thinking. So we're asking those two questions to the chart, and we're going to see where this all falls together. Now, in your case, Veretta, when we ask about, like your physical health and how all of that's going for you, then what we do is we see that midpoint of the blue and the pink dots on the outside, that they go to this black dot there where we're at. So this is like your physical body kind of had to go through this so that you could learn how to benefit from your thinking. So this is to say, like, prior to going through whatever health issues you went through, your mind was not operating in its fullest potential. Like you hadn't figured out the relaxation piece, or like maybe there's a little extra lesson on mindfulness in terms of all of this particular scenario. So like there was some new information that you had to pick up here, and it has also to do with responsibilities. We know that because of this Saturn that's out there on the outside on that third ring. So that's going to bring in responsibilities. And guess what? It was powerful because you had the Vulcanus there. So like your body this year has really been about learning how to relax and taking your mind into that next place. So this is what we mean here, you guys, when we say that we can prove this out in your chart, because it's all right there. And it's a very simple question. We ask one question, then we ask a second related question, and we see what happens when we put all of that together. So this is why, this is called Celestial Intersections Radio, is because not only are we looking at, what's happening in the cosmos out in the sky, we can, intersect all of that astrology stuff, that what people would refer to as pseudoscience, and put it into the category of hard science, because our charts here are modeled after astrophysics. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that before, but the reason we don't use a traditional 12-house system is because that doesn't really come from anything. Like Alfred Witt, when he discovered this work and he was developing all of the methodologies, he was very clear and upfront about the fact that the astrological system must align itself with the hard sciences. So Western astrology, we don't really know where the concept of 12 houses comes from, except for the fact that it's 12 equal divisions of a 360-degree circle. Now, what happens after that and all the directions that people run with it, that's an entirely different cesspool that I don't want to get into right now. But that's one of the major issues with why the Western system or traditional astrology system doesn't work, is because it's not really founded or based on anything. Like I heard recently that the concept of a progression, which is a different calculation than what we use here in Uranian astrology, your entire progressed chart, like your sun will move like a degree per year, day, or something like that. And so like your Pluto or your Neptune will move not even an entire degree throughout your entire lifetime. And then what can happen is at certain points, if you were born with planets in retrograde, such as Saturn or Uranus, those planets will then station direct by a progression calculation. And here I am thinking to myself, on what planet in what universe is it even scientifically possible that a planet in retrograde backwards motion can magically force itself to move forward because I've reached a certain age? Where's the science in that? Doesn't this, to me, that sounds like Santa Claus kind of stuff? You know, like that's like defying the very laws of nature. Like I don't get into that, so we run away from all of that. So these charts are modeled after astrophysics, and that's why they're used this way. So like all of these points, have a number from 0 to 360 degrees where that planet fell in the chart. So, like in your case, Veretta, you have your moon at 78 degrees and 23 minutes. In Western astrology, you would say that your moon is in Gemini, but because what we do is 360 divided by 4 equals 90 degrees. 90 is just another representation of 360. We can reduce all of this information by dividing those 360 degree numbers by a factor of 4 and then plotting them here on this chart. Then what we can do is we see the arrangement of all of these planets and how they're clustered, and the arrow very simply allows us to measure the distance between two celestial objects. So let's say if we click on your moon here, then we can also see the other things that are equidistant to this point in this chart. So you've got like this meridian Jupiter. So this is going to be like you and money, has something to do with your emotions or your intuition. It's actually your work because of the Mars that's over here. If I broke this down further, we would find your psychic stuff pretty strong. And so what we do, so we can see all of these things here, but this is because in astrophysics, what they use to measure distances or of celestial objects in outer space, they basically use a circular type of, like ruler like this or a compass. And that's how it's done, because this is all done in arc degrees and minutes. So we're able to determine the arc between planets, and then we study them on the dial. So by knowing the symmetrical distance of two objects and where a third object may cross the midpoint of those first two, then we can get some pretty powerful information about the person and how their life is operating. So this is one of the huge, core differences between Uranian and standard astrology, is the fact that we don't use 360 degrees, or we do, but we just divide it by 4, and then we plot it on a circular graph here, which is known as a dial. So this is a dial chart, if you ever heard of that term before. And this is something else that we do in Uranian astrology. So, Veretta, without even having to look at this one, something else that we can do as far as like predictions are concerned, this is an entirely separate course, but you have some obvious stuff that's going on right here. You've got like this Mars Uranus, which is right around this 22.5-degree pointer, because anything that's on these pointers is going to be significant because all 4 arrows are the same. So if you see anything on an arrow, then it's going to be contacting the 0 degrees Aries point up top where the red arrow's at. So anything that's on those mini arrows we want to pay attention to. That's all going to be strong stuff. Not to mention this middle chart where that pink is that I've highlighted. That's going to be your soul in the moment. So that's like your soul as it's evolved through its experiences and learned what it needs to and integrated that information into this experience. Then we'll see how those planets kind of manifest for you in this lifetime. But the pink chart is always going to be where you are today. And so, whereas like the first chart is going to be where you are in the past, because that's when you incarnated. These are the skill set or the planets that you came into this lifetime with. Like these are the things that we cannot refute about you. We know that these things are true. This is the true potential. But that's all your past stuff. Your present stuff is going to be the second chart. So for you, Mars Uranus, that's going to speak to a surgery. That's one of the very obvious things. A vacation is another manifestation. So vacations would also be very strong for you, and it's even further supported by the fact that you've got this Mercury Cupido here. So Mercury is conversations. Cupido is about love and marriage, and also about family, also networks, groups.
Interesting.
So if you decided to go on a trip with somebody, like a loved one or, your special someone or perhaps even your family, it would be to have conversations that you need to have with them. So for you to take
Uh,
leave, it would be with family. And as of today's question is for the inquiry of how would that go? Well, we can see then, I'm sorry, wrong color. Well, we can see then that this black Venus out here in the third ring, right next to that pink square, that's going to be the stuff in the future that's happening in the sky right now. So, in relation to this
okay.
question in this moment, you have a Venus that shows up with right there. So that means it's going to be a good time. That speaks positively to something like taking leave and travel with loved ones and having conversations with them. So I don't know if you've been thinking
Yeah.
about taking a trip anytime
I
recently.
actually have one planned. Yes, I do. Hmm.
Isn't that terrifying that I
I've
can
been,
see these things?
yep. I love it. I absolutely love it.
It's the funniest when people call me a witch, and I know that it's just science.
Oh yeah, I get that too. And I'm at this point. Who's to say that maybe that's what they all are? They're just seeing themselves as something different. But yeah, and that's what I mean. We can express. I can express that intuitive aspect of what I pick up, and or channel information that someone needs to know, and you can pinpoint it right there in that chart, black and white, shows
Mhm.
somebody right now what I'm talking about, what it pertains to.
And here's the difference between what you do and what I do. Like you can go with something and like a spirit message and keep filling out that story. For me though, like if I'm saying, oh, this looks like a surgery, maybe with some family members or something like that, then you keep running more questions, like about to take leave, about what kind of environment are you going to be in, who are the other players. You have to keep asking questions of the chart to fill in those story details. So like this is another
Yeah.
benefit of a personal consult with me is that I'm telling you XYZ is going to happen here on the air, but I'm only giving you 1/3 of the entire predictive process because I'm only giving you the good enough answer that's easy to see off the top. If you want that really good specificity that's going to just make you happy, then that's when you hire me, because I got to take some time to break all of that math down. It is very complicated. So when we see these things in your chart, then we say, okay, so like death is something that's kind of dicey to work with because it's fleeting. It's hard to pinpoint. There's many points during the day in any given person's life where that looks like that could happen. But you have to confirm it with other things like funerals, inheritances, music, gatherings of people, news about a death. Like these are other questions that we need to ask the chart to confirm that the event that we're seeing is really correct. So just because you think it's one thing, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what you're getting, because you do have to look at other things as well. So,
Yeah.
this is another reason why Uranian astrology is kind of dicey to use in a live format like what we're doing here on the show. This is one of the reasons why I love doing it, though, is because I may have to stick my foot in my mouth at times because I'm seeing something in a way that I don't like, and that probably the person asking the question doesn't like either, but that's the real truth of what's going on in the situation. But it's just ugly, one of those things that nobody likes to hear. And that happens
Right.
sometimes. And then but what's more unfortunate is when you see something like a loss or a separation or something like that you just cannot undo. And what's worse is you can't unsee it. So like if you see that, oh crap, I'm going to have a parent that I'm going to be losing in the next 3 to 6 months. But that's all I know. I can't unsee it, and I don't want to play with it because
Yeah.
that's human experience kind of stuff. That it's just we don't want to spoil the end of the movie. Let's not be that guy.
Right. Well, and in my experience, over 30 years of um, trial and error, right? Learning how to give readings in the appropriate manner. It was never the information that was wrong. It was how I related. And in that perspective, I have come to, the conclusion a lot of times that if I'm getting it, that person should know. I just have to be tactful enough not to really hurt their feelings or burst their bubble. But one of the things that I gained the rapport with or over, and granted a reputation to be known at is somebody that's going to tell you the absolute truth of what I'm getting, the way I'm getting it in the moment. And no, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. If you didn't want to know the truth, you shouldn't have called me. If you didn't want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly, you shouldn't have called me. And on that note, I know that the people that call me were guided to me. So obviously they're still meant to have the information in the manner that it comes across. Now, with the PhD in metaphysics, with the BA in transpersonal counseling, I've gained the insight through that knowledge of learning and experience how to allow people that time to digest the information and then pick up, did they hear me? Are they laughing behind their back thinking that I'm a fraud? And yeah, even now, people that I have read, will say, they'll call me back after maybe, months or a couple of years and say, I just wanted to tell you, last time we talked, everything that you said happened. Really? Because when we got off the phone, I seem to remember a different temperament and point of view. And then they would follow up by saying, and I thought it was the worst money I'd ever spent. But, oh, my God, you were right. So I don't worry about how they're going to take it. The responsibility of that is on them. And if you think this is just entertainment, okay, well, look, there you're fooled. But again, I believe that everybody that's brought to me is led to me. And I'm very comfortable in saying things to people that I know a lot of people won't do. And I don't have a problem with being challenged. I don't have a problem with being, questioned time and time again. I don't even have a problem with hearing somebody say, well, I can't really see how that's going to happen. Yeah, well, that's why you paid me. You weren't going to see that happen. That's why you called me. So it's very interesting over the last 30 plus years how my technique has evolved to that place of, and I'm not going to say I'm not caring, because I do, but I'm less about pleasing you and more about giving you that information. And I'm hoping somewhere along the way I can do both. But if the pleasing you part isn't on your end, okay, so be it. And you and I, Ernesto, have had people get really upset when we're not giving them what they thought we should or what they wanted to, and they hung up feeling very disgruntled because, we were full of bad news. Well, if bad news is all we're seeing for you, then that's what you're going to get.
And then what's funny is that those very people write back the next week and leave like a glowing 5-star review about how we were so amazing and all of that came true.
Yeah.
It's
I'm really at that point. Not worried about it.
Yeah, I actually almost didn't bring back the show because I was at the point where I was starting to realize, like from my experience with customer service, do I really think that, I can do this, make it a go again, to take live calls and give readings to people over the air? I did a great job, but let me be upfront when I say that my social skills are, sorely lacking in a lot of ways. And that has a lot to do with autism spectrum disorder and all of that. And so there's, some broken processes that need some work. But because it's a broken process, that only tells me, all right, so now we have to do experience therapy, which means run into the flames because, the Grim Reaper may be there and all of that is really terrifying and awful, but it's not going to get better unless if you face it and work on it. And, so I
Right.
can, sit here and be low functioning and feel sorry for myself about how nobody wants to feel my friends, or I can work on it, which is, one of the reasons why I decided, okay, so that's just gaslighting and we can move past that. And, now we're here.
Right. And when you can look at yourself and know that there may be a problem and just don't give up, try to approach the problem in a manner that's salvageable for you, then there's maybe work to be done, but there is progress being made just by the fact that you've acknowledged it. So it is what it is. It is what people make of it. But, we're not going to do anything that's harmful. We're just going to provide the information requested.
Right. And, that's one of the reasons why I've kept you in my pocket for so long is because you're the only person truly the only person I've met in my entire X number of years in spirituality and all of this who is, like genuine, authentic, and, you don't mess with people. You don't play games. And there's really something to be said for that.
It isn't about promotion. Yeah. I'm not going to, and that's probably well, it's not probably, it is one of my down points is that I don't market it. I do not run after people. I don't promote myself to, by advertising and getting a catchphrase, although I have a catch sentence that I live by, but I really don't, I don't have the time. I don't have the feeling of necessity that I need to go out there and win people over to get my foot in the door. No, I don't have to win you over. Either you're interested in what I can do or you're not. But I'm not a circus. I'm not a, nightclub act. I'm not going to give you or validate to you something that, shock you with the truth to create a presence. I'm just going to wait or go away. And if you really aren't interested in wanting to know what can be given through me, then don't come at me, because I'm not going to chase you. And I still, to this day, 30 years later, do not, I don't advertise. I'm referral based only. I don't have a need to have, I don't want a calendar that's full Monday through Friday from sun up to sundown. I'm very comfortable in living my life, and I charge what I want to, even though, and you're one of them, have repeatedly told me I don't charge enough for what I do. For me, it's not about the money. It's about the work. And I want to be able to provide people what they'd be missing, by charging too much, although I need to make a living. So I enjoy what I do. And I can't say that enough. I enjoy what I do. And it's not because it makes me who I am, because it doesn't. I am who I am. I just happen to also be a mystic medium. I have the ability to decide when I want to apply it, but I'm also versed enough to know when not to. And so I'm not somebody that's a victim by it. I teach it. I know it inside and out. I can give others the tools that they need should they want to apply it, but there are certain things that I'm not into, I won't subscribe to, and I'm not going to buckle under pressure from anybody else because they think I need to be a part of their tribe or whatever. And, it's worked well for me for 30 plus years. I'm not seeing, any advancement in trying to change.
Yeah, and so let me ask you something. What are your views or opinions on journaling?
I think in the right context, it can be very handy. And the fact is that it's helpful in more ways than one, for various reasons, depending upon where you're at on your journey. I feel that journaling can bring perspective. It can help you recall things later when you need to reflect. It can also help you go back and see that, if you're repeating a cycle or things haven't changed in 10 years, because if you thumb back through your old journals, you're writing the exact same thing today. I feel there's a lot of advantage to journaling if you're utilizing it properly.
Yeah, that's the caveat, though, is because, I was going through this experience. I used to journal a lot in my 20s, actually quite extensively. And most of my documented life is, since I've lived under a rock for the most part, as far as astrologers are concerned, I haven't really had surgeries or, I'm not married. I never fell in love, I never drove a car, any of that kind of normal people stuff. So it's very hard for me to kind of figure out what are my actual life events. But when I look back at, this backlog of all of my journaling from my early 20s and my college days, and it's just, this cesspool of me living in a hurricane and not being able to get away from it. And so I was bringing this up with my counselor, is there any benefit to, journaling again? Because I'm going through the struggling process of getting clear, which is not easy. Because, I'm sure a lot of people have done this before me. So I'm not the first one. But, I thought maybe it would be a way to, kind of sort out some of my thoughts, to identify processes or triggers or things like that may kind of set me off over the deep end. So my counselor says that journaling can be great if it's done the right way. Because if all you're doing is journaling about this mundane stuff and about the people that you went out with and drank with and, how they did you wrong, and it's just, a bunch of, attention getting crap, then you're just living in a hurricane and making it worse. Then you're just fishing for emotions that, when there's nothing actually there to work with. So that's why that type of journaling is actually quite damaging and not great. So if you're just doing it for the fact of, I'm going to write about how my day went and keep doing this, and then that'll grow and expand over time. But if there's no purpose or focus or intent with any of that, then it's going to fall apart, and you're just going to end up so confused because there's so much noise of, so what is it that I'm actually feeling? Or am I playing a game of how many astrologers does it take to screw in a light bulb? So this is why journaling can be horrible for us in ways. But if it's more like, okay, so I had a conversation with so and so today, and they brought up this specific topic, and it made me feel all of the stuff that I forgot about. And then when I hung up the phone, then the first thing I wanted to do was light a cigarette, kind of thing. Like identifying those types of behaviors through journaling, that is a meaningful exercise, because that's an actual record of, like you getting in touch with your higher self and saying, okay, so this is where the problem arises. But to do all that other stuff, that's just when it falls off the wayside.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely.
So that's
and a lot of that, any tool you use, along the line of journaling or self-help in any manner, as long as the intent and the purpose is initially to heal, then it's going to be potential if you're utilizing it like that versus, what you were just saying.
Right. So, I mean, and this is the common fallacy that a lot of people think is that, okay, if I'm going to journal, then I'm going to write about all of this boring stuff that nobody cares about. No, that's not how it works. Journal meaningfully, write about the stuff that really matters to you and the things that you're working on about yourself, and how to, have a track record of the process that I used to be able to improve this area of my life that's been somewhat challenging in the past. Like if that's weight loss, if that's to quit smoking, if that's to get clean, if that's whatever the thing is, it's my experience, at least as somebody who doesn't experience a lot of emotions, that, at least writing it down and being able to, bridge the thoughts that connect to whatever visceral knee-jerk reactions I may have. That's always really helpful to know that behavior pattern. That's also one of the pillars of Gestalt counseling is living and being in the moment, so that you're aware of the things that send you off over the deep end. Whereas, so many other forms of traditional counseling are focused on, so what happened in your childhood and how does that make you feel? No, that does not matter to me 35 years later. Let's talk about the thing that happened last week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The only benefit to getting that deep when you're talking about your childhood is to understand if you're rooted in the same cycle or trauma and recreating it over and over, and then you work on it in the now. You cannot continuously blame your parents or a relationship from 40 years ago for whatever it is you're doing wrong today. You're doing wrong today because of your choices. So it doesn't do a lot. There are reasons to find out what's happened in your past, but you have to apply the tools that you use or the information that you receive and the help that you gain, so you can move past that.
Well, yeah, like my dad had a cousin who was a born-again Christian. He passed away a few years ago. And this guy could sit there and tell stories for 7 hours plus about crap that happened 45 years ago when he was partying and doing terrible things. I don't understand how people can just live in the past like that. I did that for a little bit, and it just got to be exhausting where I forgot how to live life. And then my personal life just became so unenjoyable because there was nothing going on in it with it. Well, what do you expect when you live in the past? Let's create moments in the present. This is, again, just a different form of, why are you giving away your power to all these other people who don't care about you?
Right. Yeah. And whether it's because you want to sit on your laurels and not do anything more because you think what you've done in the past is enough to carry you to the rest of your life. And the reality of it is you're missing a lot of things that you could be doing or benefiting from or experiencing that's new by sitting on your butt, living on your laurels from 50 years ago and not making any headway on doing anything current. But that's okay. It is, the thing about that, though, is when people have to change, whether they're ready or not, then the challenge before them is to accept that change with grace, and then, live accordingly to whatever's happened.
Yeah, the more you fight change, the worse life gets, truly. Like
Oh
change is
yeah,
something that none of us
yeah,
can control. And whenever we think that we're in control, that's when everything gets turned upside down.
absolutely, absolutely.
That's
Control
just a
is an
fact about
illusion,
life.
and it really is. And I tell people, like, don't tempt spirit. When you say, "Wow, this is never going to happen," or "That's not gonna, I would never do," or "da da da," yeah, you just created a dare, and they will take it every time.
Yeah, they definitely will. So be careful what you wish for. That saying is absolutely true.
Hmm. Yep.
So I just want to let everybody know that you can give us a call here on the show if you're listening live at area code, where is that? 519 I'm sorry, let me read that again. It's area code 319-527-6071. Give us a call here on the show. We'll be here for the next few minutes. Looks like we're going to be closing out pretty soon, but the great news is that we will be back on Sunday from 10 to 11 a.m. That's our Sunday time, right? Or 10 to 11 on Sunday?
Yeah, and that is Central,
That's Arizona time.
no, Mountain, Arizona time.
Yeah.
I can't remember what time frame we fall in. Of
I,
course, I live here. I should know that by now.
I think we're Pacific right now. I'm not really too sure. I always just say Arizona Standard Time because we're always so different and weird.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
we don't change.
yeah, we're gonna be back
Yeah,
here with you guys on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, and that'll be casting from our Podbean channel. So you'll have to stay tuned for more details about that. But that you'll also be able to catch the live stream from YouTube, and then our Blog Talk Radio stream will be open, so you can call the number here and get onto our Podbean stream. So that'll be coming up for you guys on Saturday. I do want to thank everybody for coming out for a great pilot episode here of Celestial Intersections Radio. As always, we will be back with you guys on Wednesday nights from 6 to 7 p.m. So be sure to subscribe, like, and share. We truly appreciate your listenership here. And if all goes according to plan, I'll be able to send out a mass email to our old subscriber base to let them know where we've moved to. I just haven't figured out that yet because I'm not a tech guy. So fingers crossed. And we'll hope everything goes according to plan.
sounds wonderful.
Well, thank you, Veretta,
Yeah,
for
we
being
will
here
be
with
back.
us. It was awesome.
Absolutely. I enjoy it, and I am looking forward to getting our callers in and giving those, people the input that they're hoping for, or at least needing at that time, and doing what we're here to do.
Absolutely. And for all other things Uranian Astrology, be sure to go over to eastrologer.tv, and you can hit up Veretta at verettavision.com.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, you guys. We will catch up with you soon. And until next time, good night and Godspeed.
Blessings.